Thank you for joining so promptly. I can see we've still got quite a few people coming on as I'm talking. So what I'm going to do is just go back on mute for sort of 30 seconds and then we'll get started. Just a couple of things while we're waiting. Today's webinar will be recorded, so just letting you know that's the case. And just before I go back on mute, can someone just put a thumbs up in the chat, please, just to let me know that I'm actually, you can actually hear me. I'm not talking to myself. Perfect. Yeah, I've got a couple of things. So fantastic. So I said I'm just going to go and hold literally for sort of 20 seconds, and then we'll get started. Thank you. Brilliant. Thank you, Jane. Okay, perfect. So we'll get going. So for those of you who've just joined, as I said, my name is Annie Patterson, Head of Business Development for Risk Engineering for Zurich Resilient Solutions. I joined Zurich in January. My background, I've worked in insurance and risk and protection for 25 years or so, which always makes me feel very old. What we're here to do today, and what my role is really, is to help you, help yourself, help your business, and help your property. Obviously, the webinar today is focusing on smart building technology. So for me, 3 key areas that we want to cover. Firstly, and most importantly, what smart building technology actually is. It's one area that Ian's going to talk through in a second with Peter, but there's a lot of discussion. You'll see loads of articles about smart building technology. One thing we really want to get over today, exactly what that means for you as a person and as a business. Secondly, and again, from my side, really important, what are the benefits of smart building technology? So we'll focus on from a risk point of view, from a cost and energy saving point of view, and from a sustainability point of view. And to finish the webinar, and as we work throughout the session, what solutions are actually out there. Now, to give you an idea of the size of the market, 2 years ago, globally, there were around about 45 million businesses that had smart building technology. Within 2 years, that number is expected to grow to 115 million. So if my maths are correct, it's a 150% increase. So it shows that a number of people are looking for smart building technology. What we're going to do today is cover exactly why that is. Now, feedback Ian and I get, the conversations we have with customers and potential customers, is that a lot of people, because obviously inflation, which is well pressed, has gone up, which means there's been a significant increase in energy costs. So we get inquiries because obviously profit margins are reduced. That means reduced spending in the organisation and other departments, and obviously it's often having to increase costs for customers. So for today's session, I will ask the panel in a second to introduce myself, but there will be, as you can see, 0 slides, which we think is a good thing. So there will be no slides throughout for the presentation. What I'll be doing is hosting a panel discussion. We'll be asking Peter, Martin and Ian for their feedback on some preset questions. One thing on that, please, as you go through and from the answers that you get, please write down any questions or thoughts that you have. We'll do a hard stop at 11:30 and we'll have 15 minutes of questions for you to ask whatever you want about smart building technology to our panel of experts. So without further ado, I will pass over to our panel to introduce themselves. So Ian, if you can go first, please.
Thanks, Andrew. My name's Ian Anderson. I've been with Zurich now for just over a year and a half. And my experience when I joined Zurich wasn't from the insurance background, but was more from the artificial intelligence and IoT, where I've been working for the last 10 years in relation to predictive maintenance and preventative maintenance, and basically just leveraging industrial data for tangible bottom line benefits. So my passion lies in realizing the financial benefits in that data for the customer and creating a more sustainable future.
Peter, do you want to go next?
Yeah. Hello, I'm Pete Tuckett, Chief Engineer at GWTI as a Zurich partner. 30 years in specialising in building optimization from commercial buildings and harnessing the data to actually make these buildings work properly. So I've been supporting Zurich through this through the whole of the this exercise.
Martin.
Hi everyone, I'm Martin Richards, Zurich UK Technical and Innovation Manager. I'm responsible for all engineering-based IoT and smart technologies that include systems such as BMS, security lighting, smart lockers occupancy, space utilization, and environmental temperature and air quality monitoring. And I come with 30 years experience with Zurich.
Perfect, thank you. And we've managed to do that without anyone having to come off mute. So we've passed the first test. So what we're going to do first of all, I said we want to keep this as interactive as possible. So we're just going to put a poll up now that you should see flash in front of the screen any second now. So there we go. So just one quick question, I think, to get everyone going, and it's a really important place to start. What actually is a smart building? So there's 4 answers on there for you. If you can just have a quick look and just think, obviously, whatever you think is will work, and then Peter's just going to have a quick look at the answers that come through. So I'll just give you another sort of 10 seconds or so, and then Peter will start going through. So if you haven't put an answer yet, don't worry, it's not you're not going to fail any tests. So yeah, if you can put an answer, and then Peter, over to you.
Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, 55% actually, all of you are correct, but 55% are in the right place. So the definitions there are ones that you could use to describe a smart building just at different levels. The definition of a smart building is one that uses the available data to continue optimize itself to run efficiently. It's very important to sort of understand that also a building that runs efficiently affects the risk. So an efficient building directly improves the risk of a building, and that's a point that's worth remembering all the way through. I mean, a typical commercial building, so an office building, will run with about 8,000 to 10,000 pieces of information linked together to operate. If you look around the office space that you currently work in, you'll see sort of devices on the wall, on the ceilings. All of these devices feed back to a central point, to referred to as a building management system, or BMS. This is used to actually operate the building and provides a very good source of information.
Perfect, thanks, Peter. And I think it's quite an important point, because again, that's a question that Ian and I get a lot about the data points. We'll pick up on that in a second as well. So Ian, just handing over to you. So one of the areas we want to focus on today is kind of energy wastage and cost. So on average, what's the energy wastage of a commercial building in England or in the UK?
Well, the Environmental Protection Agency reported that 30% of energy used in a commercial building is wasted due to inefficiencies. And as you can imagine, this high energy wastage, it really does affect a company's bottom line. And a lot of the wastage just comes from historical settings within systems like the HVAC and lack of analysis on performance data. So smart solutions ensure that all of the data is being analyzed to report back to the end user to minimize those inefficiencies and to optimize the performance of their building.
Brilliant, thank you, Ian. So as I said at the beginning, I wanted to talk about key thing for me on this webinar is for everyone on here to understand what the actual benefits are for a smarter building. So yeah, what, I guess, simple question really, what benefits are there to make a building smarter? So Peter, I'll pass this one to you, and then maybe to Ian as well, if that's okay.
Okay, yeah. The obvious ones are the ability to maximise the operational efficiency and reduce risk in a building by having a full 360-degree view. Less obvious is the ability to bring out information from a building to an open platform, making it available to all. This enables comprehensive reporting, the ability for other sectors of the business to drive further efficiencies. I think it's worth noting that virtually any building with a building management system can provide this type of information if tapped into correctly. Where a building management system can't provide all of the information, a simple addition of IoT sensors can fill the gaps, The key is to know where to fill the gaps before you start filling them. I mean, worth pointing out the IoT and how it would fit in.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. Because that's one question I know Andrew and I get asked a lot. Is what is IoT? So for those of you on the webinar that don't know, IoT refers to the Internet of Things, and quite simply, it's a network of physical devices that can communicate with one another and transfer data to one another without human intervention. So IoT devices aren't limited to just computers or machinery. It can include anything with a unique sensor, UID. So most of you will have used IoT and communicated with IoT in the last 24 hours. For example, if you've asked Alexa or Google to do a task like turn the lights on or turn on the TV, or even what's the weather like where I'm located, then you will have engaged with IoT. Or possibly driving to work today, you engage cruise control in your car. Again, that is a form of using IoT. So a lot of people think it's this big technical thing, but quite simply, it's just that. It's the ability for devices to communicate and transfer data without human intervention. And just to add to that, from a building point of view, just to touch on what Pete said, these sensors within your building will just give you a much more comprehensive understanding of what's happening, where people are going, from presence detection, and where energy might need to be transferred to. So in relation to the building side of things, that's where IoT becomes exceptionally useful.
Brilliant. And I know it kind of got me thinking, I've had conversations where facilities managers said to us, oh, well, I've got a BMS system, but all I do at night is I walk around and turn lights off. That's what we're trying to avoid, is for to be a bit more high tech than someone having to manually walk around their building 3 or 4 times a day. So so what we'll do is we're just going to put up another poll as well. So Peter, I think it was either Ian or Peter mentioned about the number of data points on there. So you'll see a question now: what % of the 8,000 to 10,000 pieces of information would the end user expect to see from their building management solution? This time there is only one correct answer. I said I'll just give you looks like a bit of an even spread, but I'll give you enough sort of 10 seconds or so, and then Peter, back to you if that's okay.
Yeah, no, very good. Everyone's certainly the percentage 57% are right. Interesting enough, there's about 800 to 1,000 pieces of data. Around 10% of the information is used by the operator to monitor a building. Buildings are designed to run in real time and capture a limited amount of data for historic information, and that's really based around the day-to-day monitoring of its operations. So there's an unseen 90% of information in real time. This is chatter between devices in the building. It's it's just a standard piece of communication. But if you were to look at that data, and if you being able to collect that data over time, combine it with information used to monitor the building, then it becomes something powerful. Take that step further and apply that across, the building and a portfolio setup, and you're starting to get 90% more information. That becomes very powerful. So you're starting to look at this information that's hidden in the back of a building, in the back of a system, and there's running systems, which starts to give you a good insight. The ability to analyze this and look for insights and opens the data up for more understanding and improved efficiencies and a reduction in risk.
Brilliant. Thanks, Peter. And it's probably good to go. Martin, I'll sort of come over to you as well. So I think obviously we've talked, everything's been theoretical about building management systems and some of the questions Ian and I get. So Martin, a good time to bring in really. I know obviously you're a user of Insight. So can you just go through how the system or how Insight changed the way you looked at data compared to some of the things Peter's just talked about?
Yeah, so it really did help us. We become much more proactive. We were able to evidence and analyze the data differently. We were able to identify trends. We were able to prioritize. By prioritizing your major issues, you're able to deal with those a lot more efficiently. As we started to use Insight, it become really, really powerful, really intriguing. And it really encouraged us to do some deep dives further and some further interrogation into the system. And in turn, how we were able to hold others responsible and accountable for some of the actions that were taking place within our building. So it might have been the FM supplier, it might have been a subcontractor, it might have been a user of the system, but how that system was not being run efficiently, and we were able to see that and interpret that data in a more simplistic way.
Perfect. Okay, fantastic. I'll just kind of carry on from that point, actually, that's okay. So what changes then did you actually be able to make? Because we get asked this a lot about energy savings. It is the thing that, risk and energy savings we get asked all the time. So what changes did you make then to actually realize those energy savings?
Yeah. So, prior to Insight, we were operating as many people do, very reactively, reacting to situations, reacting to weather, reacting to breakdowns, that type of thing. It did make us become much more proactive. We are very customer focused, as we all are very customer focused. We wanted to delight our customers, our people within our buildings. We wanted to enable further cost savings, but not only on the reactive and life cycle repairs, on the planned preventative maintenance. It allowed us to look at different operating strategies for maintenance. It helped us identify problems and problem areas, problem systems, and we were able to improve the environment. And obviously, by making those changes, we were able to lower our energy consumption. On the back of that, we were able to review the performance of the building much more intelligently, and it allowed us to make some really good informed decisions, rather than going on maybe this, maybe that. We had some hard facts to go by. We were able to see it, we were able to feel it. And as we all experienced over the last few years, rising energy costs, ensuring that the consumption is lower so that you can mitigate that rise in energy cost, the impact to the customer, the building. We wanted to ensure that comfort, environmental conditions within the building were maintained as well. So we weren't affecting that in any negative way. That's really important to us. But we were able to adjust plant times and set points, mitigate inefficient plant that may have been fighting against each other. They create a huge amount of efficiency issues. But in being able to deal with those in real time was a huge benefit, because that energy saving become real straight away, and you were able to see it the next day. You're able to see the impacts of your change immediately, which is absolutely incredible.
Brilliant, thanks, Martin. And I think it's a really key point, because Ian and I will speak to council, people only running council buildings, leisure centres, hotels, hospitals, you name it, and exactly what you said is feedback I get a lot about. I need help with this, the energy saving, the risk saving, and as I mentioned already, about what's actually happening in my building. I think when we get questions, we get asked a lot about older buildings, and we can definitely help on them. But I think you just talked about the building being brand new. So were there any additional benefits that Insight provided from that?
So yes, so we had an unexpected benefit, really. You tend to associate efficiencies or inefficiencies with older buildings, but we actually had our brand new flagship location in Swindon come online in October 22, and it enabled us to get better insight into the way that building was performing from the word, from the very, very start. It helped us be able to protect our warranty and our defect period. It identified issues within the building that nobody knew existed. Inefficiency issues that were being through the BMS system, through the whatever system, the HVAC system. Things weren't working quite right. So it enabled us to go back to our principal contractor and hold them accountable during that period of time, which obviously is a huge cost benefit. And it protected the warranty as well. very easy to use. You know, it provided remote connectivity, and we were able to evidence those issues as well back to the principal contractor, and it really sort of leveraged some quite good conversations. You know, it brought on some really healthy conversations with everybody that was involved. And yeah, you know, we were able to just deal with all of those issues. And like I said, you know, some of them weren't even, you didn't even know existed, you know, but conflict in plan and HVAC, the way that it operates, BMS might not necessarily always tell you that. So where you've got insight plugged into it and you're pulling that data out, you can actually see that there's further inefficiencies there, which can actually help not only from our defects and warranty period, but actually reduce the energy consumption, so it's more in line with what the prediction of a new building should be.
Brilliant. Thanks, Martin. And I think someone's just asked about some of the risk benefits. You've covered that, but I will come back to that question in a second as well. So, Ian, just one back to you actually then. So I've touched on it a few times about the financial benefits, but yeah, can you just kind of clarify how those financial benefits can come through?
Quite simply, Andrew, is by reducing operating costs. You know, automation and optimization of building energy management functions will lower maintenance costs and reduce energy consumption. And I know we've touched on energy consumption and maintenance quite a lot, but they are two very costly things for a building to run, and especially as we know, we're in well, hopefully coming out of the coming to the end of an energy crisis, but very much still in there with high energy costs. So using sensors within a building to focus energy only where it's needed. So for instance, if you have a boardroom that's used for a Friday end of week meeting and the rest of the time it's not being used, why send energy there all week? Again, post the pandemic, the way our working lives changed, you know, a lot of people went into hybrid working roles, not in the office Monday to Friday, more in the office 2 to 3 days a week. However, have the settings within the building been changed to reflect this, or is it still operating like everybody is there 5 days a week and wasting energy? But also mitigating against potential risks within your building. Risks tend to cost money, you know, whether it's equipment running to failure or potential leaks within a building. I know this system has picked up high humidity in an air handling unit that stopped a catastrophic leak above a comms room that would have shut down an office for a couple of months and caused thousands of pounds worth of damage to the equipment within the comms room. So there is huge opportunities for risk savings, and as we said, you know, if a potential risk comes into the building and it shuts down your building, then that's very costly to a business. And knowing when to maintain your equipment. Andy, I know you and I ask this question a lot with key components within a building. You know, how are you maintaining it? And all we hear is it's on a schedule. So this is done every June, that's done every August. Whereas if we look at the data actually coming off these pieces of equipment, quite often we'll see that they're going to run to failure before that happens, or we are quite simply over maintaining this. So let's look at the data and get the maintenance just in time, not when it's just the right time of year to do it because we can get an engineer in. If that doesn't need to be done, let's shelve that and focus our priorities elsewhere. And that's before we look at the sustainability benefits. I mean, there are significant government kickbacks and tax benefits for those who are operating sustainable properties. And the built environment is responsible for 40% of the annual carbon dioxide emissions, with building operations accounting for 27% of that. So we also have an ethical responsibility to make these changes and try and make our planet more sustainable.
Perfect. And if you can, there's a couple of questions again, which I think you might have answered as they were being asked in. So you're a mind reader, but I said I will come back to the questions because there are some coming through now. But just last question, then I said we'll move over to the Q&A that's coming through. So probably Martin, Peter, I'll ask both of you if that's okay. So what would you say to a new user of a system like this? Because a lot of the questions are about asking about risk and, you know, quantifying it. So what would you say to a new user to maximize the actual benefits?
So it's very easy to use. You don't have to be technical to use it. So, you know, but, you know, seek to develop the graphs, you know, in terms of risk perspective. You know, we did, and Ian, you mentioned it earlier about the comms room leak. You know, it did identify some high humidity within a comms room, which was actually a leak, which was absolutely great, because it enabled us to get on top of it quite soon. But engage with others when you start. You're on a journey, so engage with others and explain the product to others as well. Spend time getting to know the system, but also get to know your building. It's equally as important to understand your building so that you can relate this back to Insight. And in your monthly discussions, your monthly meetings, your exec meetings, get it on the agenda, talk about it, put it on there as a discussion point, because I think, that's really important to actually, it doesn't need to be a hidden benefit, that bring it to life. And let's talk about it, because it's real and it's great to work with.
Yeah, and I think from to add to that is there's a piece of hardware which is it's very simple to install, doesn't require an engineer, so it's easy to get up and running. And for the operator and person using it, it's important that they do understand their building and know what they're looking for to get out of it initially, and then learn from there.
Perfect, thanks, Peter. And I think just one final point for me really is when we speak to people, obviously budgets at the moment, as Ian mentioned, they're pretty much everyone has restricted budgets, but everyone has an increase in energy costs. And I look after the reinstatement cost assessment side or valuation side, and we've really seen a benefit in Insight being able to help that where people are struggling for budgets, that we can save them money through Insight in other areas to be able to pay for other services that clients need immediately and urgently. So yeah, that's definitely an area we can help with as well. So perfect. That is the end of the questions that we had preset. I've got a few coming through already, so I'll start working my way through them. But please do take the next 10 minutes. Have a think as we're going through the questions we've already got. What are the things that if you don't think we've answered, you want more clarification on, please make the most of this time just to ask any questions that you don't feel like you've got an answer to yet. So first question, I will Ian, I'll pass this to you actually, if that's okay. So and maybe Peter as well actually. So we've talked about Insight, we've talked about building management solutions. What else is there in the market like this service?
If I go first, Pete, quite simply, there's nothing exactly like this service. We've talked about the product Zurich Insight being able to look at energy, sustainability, and risk within a building. And to the best of our knowledge and the extensive research that we've done, there is nothing out there offering those three in a single service. You might be able to, I'm sure you would be able to find three separate entities that could cover that, but this looks at all three and delivers back actionable insights to the end user on all three. And therefore, in my opinion, there's nothing like this in the market. I don't know what your thoughts are, Pete.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. The areas that are covered by Insight and the devices, there isn't a comparable device out there. And I think there's a lot of systems that can provide the information, but it's the ability to provide it across the platform, standardized across the portfolio with all the same data, so you could have different information coming in from different buildings, but it all comes out as a standard output, and that makes it very powerful and very unique.
Brilliant. And just to be clear, someone just sent me a direct message. So we are not in competition with building management systems. We work alongside them. That's a key point to get from today. So
yeah, I would say that's very important. The building management system is actually the feed of the information. It's just the fact that we harness it in a very different way. As I said earlier, a building management system is designed to run in real time and has the capability of storing data, but not at any capacity, and usually data that's used for operational use. So to be able to actually take a full holistic view of everything that's coming off the building is very unique, and to be able to compress that and ultra compress it so it can be transferred back out and then used later is key.
Perfect. And I think, just elaborating on that, when I first started in January, I met Peter in his office and he showed me the data from a building management system. Blew my mind. There was endless data points, information on that. For someone who's not, history is not working with building management systems, I didn't understand it. That's the point of Insight, to work alongside it, to make it simple for someone to be able to understand. had loads of questions about the risk side of thing. The beauty of this is you can log on and you can see and understand it really quickly what's happening in the building, if there's any changes, and therefore to mitigate risk as well. So it's a key point from my side. This is about making it simple for anyone to understand what is happening in their building at any point. So thanks, Peter. So next question. I'll potentially maybe Martin actually, because I think you've covered this a little bit, but someone just said this webinar seems obviously focused on energy and cost savings. What would you say are the risk benefits of smart properties?
So yeah, so I touched on it earlier about the monitoring of comms rooms and water leaks and things like that. You know, we very much we very much pride ourselves on being able to monitor those sorts of locations, and rather than having a separate, you know, you can have separate leak detections in comms rooms and things like that, but unexpectedly, you know, Insight does provide some data in terms of early life cycle failures. So, you know, water leaks, that type of thing, you know, things that are working against each other. We had the water leak issue where we didn't know there was a water leak. You know, it was a comms room that doesn't get visited very often, but the Insight did alert us to say that there was high humidity in the room. Now, naturally, high humidity could be driven by air conditioning, but you know, it took us then to investigate it, and when we investigated it, there was actually a leak. So, you know, if that had carried on, then that could have brought that building down, and you know, the IT systems down within that building. You know, it could have been a lot worse. So I think, you know, from risk benefits, there's lots of benefits, but those type of things in terms of management of water systems within a building, you know, it's not just comms rooms that you'll see the benefit. You know, if you've got water meters and you'll see an excessive usage through that meter, you know, that might be because occupancy has gone up, but it might well be because there's a water leak somewhere that you don't actually know is there. So, you know, it's great in terms of being able to simplify those trends and you know, alert people to it a lot sooner, so that you can at least then challenge it and get it dealt with. So it's not too costly for you as a business to you know, for the downtime, etc.
And can I just add to that? Martin obviously has a great knowledge of what happened in the Zurich buildings, but when this has gone out to external customers, we had a leisure centre, for instance, that when they were able to analyze the data quickly and perfectly evidenced that, you know, no fire alarm testing had been carried out for 3 months. And also there was a Legionella risk within the leisure centre. Now, you can imagine that's general public going in and using this, and that was information that no one in that leisure centre had before a system like this went in place. So it helps you identify new risks like the Legionella risk and continue monitoring of things like escape of water, and will also, you know, prevent things like business interruption, because you can imagine if your business is open to the general public and you're not aware of these risks and they become evident, then, you know, there's a potential closure. And also, if you look at the fire alarm testing from an insurance point of view, if we link this a little bit back to Zurich, to be able to evidence to an insurer from the data on a dashboard that, look, it's being carried out every week, it's happening like that, it's happening regularly, then the insurance provider, whether it's Zurich or somebody else, will look at that and say, right, the data's there, there's less time needs to be spent going through logs, less time spent on site, but also we know that the customer is doing what they should be doing because the data simply does not lie.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you both.
But I can add on that as well that the data is looked at very differently. When operating a building, you're looking for data which, as I say, runs in real time, and you're looking for pinpointing exact issues or faults in the building. When you look at it from risk, you're looking for potential. So you look across the whole building for looking for a number of different factors that could be a problem, and that's very different. It's a very different way to handle the same data to give you that assurance about you're covering and you're identifying potential risk, which is very much how that was picked up with Martin's situation.
Brilliant. Peter, can I stay with you, because I've just had a question coming in which I think would be perfect for you to answer. So someone's just asked about, and I will try and work my way through, there's a lot of questions coming in, which is brilliant, so I'll do my best to go through these. Peter, someone's asked about how invasive, intrusive is Insight and the equipment will be.
It's not evasive or intrusive. I mean, the way Insight works, it just sits and it reads only. So it'll sit on the system. It doesn't load a building management system or any of the data. It literally just watches what's coming through. It can't provide any control. It doesn't provide any comms. It is out there just as you imagine watching water go through a pipe. It's just watching what goes on the top. It literally just sees what's going through the data and it just collects it. So it has minimal impact, if any, at all on the system.
Brilliant, thank you. Someone's else here as well, maybe Ian, potentially, or jump in. So do you have any stats for achievable energy and maintenance cost reductions?
Statistics, no, quite simply because Insight is a very new solution. So we don't have the statistics. We do have some energy saving figures across the buildings that it went into over a 12-month period, which was just over the £150,000 mark. We do have, obviously, if we look across the maintenance side of things, I think Martin would be probably better placed to talk about savings realized on maintenance within Zurich buildings, because that's the key thing. When this product was developed, we decided to test it in Zurich buildings before offering it out to the external wider market. So Martin was really involved in the testing of this, so he might be able to allude to a little bit more detail on some maintenance savings.
Yeah, so on the back of that, Ian, we did realise some energy savings straight away with our new building, and that was simply because Insight identified that there was a conflict between a boiler management system and the BMS system. So, putting smart technologies in, IoT in, it doesn't always work if the system is conflicting against each other. And Insight pulled this data out and actually told us that by the boiler management system wasn't making the boilers run as efficiently as what they should have done. So we instantly made a change to that. We changed the profile of the program, and it made an instant saving. So we made the change on, say, the Thursday, and then the following Monday, we were able to evidence that we made a sort of 17% saving straight away by those two systems conflicting against each other, which at the time was quite a considerable amount of money. Now, I'm not saying that is always available, but it is great in terms of being able to just extract that and really analyze that data and be able to see that change instantly. Within days you can see that it's an instant change, and then obviously you've got the ability then to monitor it over the next period of the month, and then you can see the data at the end of the month on your energy bills.
Brilliant, thanks, Martin. So we've got about 5 minutes left. So I'll try and sort of go through that last 3 or 4 questions. So one question on here is asking about, obviously it measures energy, environmental comfort, plant operation, etc. What is your experience of measuring qualitative aspects of user experience relating to wellness?
So if I jump in first, and I think probably Pete, if you jump in after me, but one area where we see the benefits is quite simply within the retail sector. One customer that I spoke to last year, when throughout the conversation they said, we're noticing that we just don't get our temperature set points right in store. We have people coming in on a really hot day outside and it's freezing when they get into the store because the aircon is just on full blast. They've even noticed people putting on jumpers that they don't buy at the end of their shopping experience. They just take off because they were freezing in the store. So it's looking at things like that and taking into account what's happening with the external temperature and how is that reflecting inside in the store, because the customer journey, let's face it, we've all walked into stores in summer and been freezing, and walked into stores in winter and been roasting, having to take off layers, scarves. So it will help you realize what the customer wants when they're within your building, and what will make them stay a little bit longer and hopefully engage with your products a little bit more.
And I think what it does is, that sort of reflects back to the earlier question about for a new user. I think the key is if you can identify what you're trying to achieve, then the data can be brought out and dissected in the way that will actually give you that information. So, as much as the question is directed to a certain area, that's the case. Well, okay, let's look at the factors that make this. So, air quality, temperature, the other pieces in the building that all make the effect and have the effect outside air temperature on the building and how well is that space performing. So, it is possible to pick that data up. It's just creating, as Martin said a bit earlier, just creating the information and picking it out as you need it. And it's very simple to do.
And
Brilliant.
if there are things like CO2 sensors, we know that getting those levels right, whether it's for a customer or for your own employees, just makes people work to a higher standard, makes them feel a little bit better. So being able to monitor that air quality quite often is very important, not just for your customer, but for the people within your building. That might be employees or whoever they may be.
Ian, that's a really good point, because pre this role, I was managing people for a number of years in large and small offices, and the biggest headache issue to deal with were people saying, I'm too hot, I'm too cold, and having to move people around and saying they couldn't work. I still remember those days fondly. So this is definitely an area where, rather than someone coming in and changing a sensor here and there and just having to deal with this every day, it's something that from a wellness point of view absolutely can help. So yeah. Couple more questions. So should we go to? So someone's asked about if there's a demo of what Zurich Insight or a technical white paper or data sheet. Absolutely yes. And what we'll do is we'll obviously we have details. Everyone that's made the session today will be in touch to go through and be able to do a demonstration of the portal and exactly how the dashboards work, which will be really key. So I massively encourage anyone to, if you want that, type a message in here at the end or to me privately, and then Ian and I can be in touch with you to do a one-on-one session to give you more detail about exactly how that can help you. And yes, we do have fact sheets, etc., to discuss in more detail how the service actually works as well. Next part. So yeah, someone just asked Tarek, so I will obviously we spoke before this. I will give you a call straight after this to have a quick chat. And then have I missed any questions? So right, last question. So Peter, probably for yourself, what is the platform or architecture of the Zurich Insight system?
Is that on the cloud side or the actual hardware side? I suppose there's two parts. So there is the hardware. The hardware side is running on is a small processor that sits in there, actually on Ubuntu. But I'm not the technical side of that. It's on the building side. That's the engineers behind it, and then that information is fed up into the AWS cloud.
Perfect. Okay, brilliant. Okay, perfect. So I said we've got a couple of minutes, so I'll probably close it there because I'm just really conscious of time. But firstly, a massive thank you for everyone that's come on board. So like I said, next steps will be let us know privately if you want to have a catch up. We'll have your details. We'll reach out to you. So massive thank you to Martin, Ian, Peter. Couple of things on that. I was writing notes as they were talking. The three areas that came out for me, again, being new to the industry: risk reduction, hugely. Martin's example about the office and Legionella and obviously the comms room, really strong example about the impact that could have. So from a risk reduction point of view, hugely important. Ian just mentioned it, sustainability. Certainly one person with a business, if not all of us, will have a sustainability target now. That can absolutely help on that. And from an energy saving, again, Martin gave some really good examples on that. So where budgets are tight and energy costs are always going to increase, certainly water, etc. This is an area and a service that can hugely help you going forward, with your budget. So massive thank you for coming on board, for taking the time to listen and the questions. Like I said, we will be in touch. But yeah, thank you for attending and have a good rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
You.